past 20 years, Russia has managed to change from a state-directed economy to a free market economy. But the financial crisis has been a setback for Russia's economic development, and now many international businesses are challenged. Steve, you've taken over as CEO of Credit Suisse Russia in 2010. That was in the middle of the financial crisis. What were the main obstacles for the country at that time, and what's the situation now?
Well, Russia was actually quite fortunate. It was well prepared going into the crisis, more well prepared than other countries. It had a very low debt to GDP level relative to its peers, particularly in Western Europe. It benefited from high commodity prices, which began to rebound right after the initial shock of the financial crisis in 2008. In particular, oil rose pretty dramatically, and as you know, it's still trading around $90 a barrel at this point in time. But that said, investors are still quite wary of investing in Russia. They see an economy that's based largely on commodities with very little manufacturing capabilities or the ability to create value-added products locally. And they also see a country that is challenged in terms of its democratic institutions. While it is a democracy in name, I think many still perceive it as being managed in not an autocratic fashion, but it's really a managed democracy in the truest sense.
What would speak for investing into Russia?
Well, it's a country with an extremely literate population, relatively young, well-educated, as I said, abundant natural resources, and really almost a clean playing field in terms of a landscape that's fresh for innovation, development of new industries. Russia has traditionally been an exporter of commodities and resources. It's very good at digging things out of the ground and then shipping it abroad. But traditionally it has lagged countries like Brazil and certainly China in terms of creating value-added products locally. And so in that sense, it's a wide open, a clean playing field for new entrants or local entrants to develop new economies, new businesses.
You are American, but you've been doing business in Russia ever since the time it was still the Soviet Union. If you had to advise investors and entrepreneurs who want to do business with Russia, what would you tell them is the most important thing to consider?
I would say in a word, patience. I think when you look at Russia and the way it's developed in essentially 20 years, it's pretty tremendous, the level of development. And while it's had its fits and starts and it's gone back, at times, taken steps back, the progress from the country, emerging from the Soviet Union at the end of the 1980s to date has been, I think, admirable. Much good has occurred. There's still a long way to go, but there's progress. And I think the progress that they made towards joining Western nations as a democracy, and in terms of a market economy, I think that progress is irreversible and it will continue.
Russia is the world's biggest oil producer and Europe is one of its strongest export partners. But now President Putin aims to strengthen business relationship with China. What does that mean for business here in Russia?
Well, certainly it's a vast market. A tremendous, voracious consumer of commodities, so it has to be one of Russia's most important markets. But by the same token, I think Russians are concerned, and the leadership is concerned about being beholden to one market. And I think more than anything, they want to have diversification, not only in terms of economic partners, but in terms of the foundations of the economy.
The country has vast resources in oil, gas, timber and other commodities, and it's got a high technological know-how. Where would you see the potential for the future?
Well, I think the potential is vast, but largely untapped to date. The government's very focused on creating new industries locally that will make Russia a world leader, whether it's in technology. Nanotechnology, for example, is a big focus area. They've set up a major company to sponsor nanotechnology investment globally. They've developed a technology center in Skolkovo. So it's those types of initiatives that the government's taking and the recognition that it has of what it needs to do to really make Russia a leading global force in the 21st century and to harness the wealth that it has in commodities and to transform that and transform the country into industrial and technology leadership.
What's the best thing about making business here?
I would say the best thing about doing business in Russia is the people. Many Westerners have this perception of Russians as being cold, having this very cold, dark veneer. But at the end of the day, once you get to know people here, they're incredibly warm and embracing. Another thing I would point out is this is a tremendously dynamic place to do business. The changes that have occurred in Russia over the last 20 years have been monumental. And that, for a professional, a banker like myself, makes this an incredibly exciting place to do business.